Hi everyone and welcome to a mid checkpoint for my cohort. For those of you who don't know, for the past 2 months I've been teaching a MERN stack cohort, and in this video I wanted to talk about what all we have learned, what all we are learning, the general goal behind the cohort, the feedbacks, the learnings, all that I've learned, all that students have learned, and what we're doing from now. In case you want to join the cohort, it is still open and there is a coupon code at the very end in case you want to get a slightly discounted price since you're joining so late, and why you should join, why you shouldn't join, who should join right now, and who should wait for the next cohort, which will be coming very soon. With that, let's get right into the video. So what was the goal of the cohort? The high level goal was, when you look at an open source project, it's very overwhelming. The thing that you see on the left is a very simple React project. It might be very easy for you to look at it, understand it. It has a top level app.jsx file. Whenever you create your own React project, it's fairly simple. You understand everything. However, whenever you look at an open source project, there are tons of folders there, a bunch of things happening inside. Even though this is technically in the MERN stack, there are 1,000 things that are happening and it's very overwhelming for you to look at it. The goal was, by the end of the cohort, you have enough knowledge to be able to decode these folders, these files, and if you want to contribute, you can. If you want to create your own project, you have the constructs to create a very nice production-worthy application. Anyone can build this. Frankly, you just need like a 5-hour tutorial on React and you're good to go. But this thing is slightly hard. There is not a lot of information available. There are too many things to learn. And the goal was, within a span of 2 months, originally, that was the original duration. Within a span of 2 months, we understand most of the technologies, or maybe all of them, needed that are being used in an open source project, especially the MERN stack project. The goal was to learn things fast. You can learn all of this. It took me 5 years to learn all of this, and like now today I'm at a stage where I look at an open source project, I'm able to decode it. But the goal for me was, like, generally the goal of the cohort was, okay, whatever I've learned in 5 years, let's put it down into 2 months, and you have very specified goal focused approach every week to understand a new thing. This is from my TA, not anyone from the cohort. This could be biased opinion, but this was the opinion after the TypeScript class. And what it says here is what is being taught by Harkirat Singh now. It took me almost a year to touch those concepts. I would mostly agree. It took me almost a year to understand TypeScript, and we tried to chunkify it down into 2 classes of 2 hours each. So that is the high level goal. The important things, the difficult things that I know, we push them down into 2 hours and try to take them up every week. 2 hours as in 4 hours every week, and take these hard concepts and try to hustle through them. I'm not saying I can teach the best in the world. I'm not even saying, okay, 2 hours are enough to learn a technology. But in 2 hours, you get the right context to learn from me by doing a bunch of assignments and then from the internet. That is the goal. Okay, this is something you should learn, this is something you should learn, and this is something you shouldn't learn. But that's very abstract. So we should maybe talk about what exactly we've learned and what exactly we're learning. All the weeks that I've taught, what we have taught, and then what are we teaching in the coming few weeks. Before that, very high level sort of agenda / how the cohort has been. It's been a highly feedback based course, which basically means if a class is good, we know. If a class isn't good, it was fast or it was slow, we've been informed, and then we've changed the cohort based on that. The speed, what is being taught, is highly based on what people want to learn. People are themselves looking at open source projects and are like, this part is slightly weird, let's discuss this. And that's how the curriculum of the whole thing has changed. Originally, what I had in my mind was a simple MERN stack, which is React, state management, backend, and we're good to go. But what I've understood over the past 2 months is that is not enough to decode anything. Every company is using something very specific that when a person opens an open source project, they have so much context to gain for that project anyways. Plus, let's say they don't know GraphQL and that project is using GraphQL, and they're lost and then they leave the project. So the goal is, every week by week, start killing these buzzwords, oh GraphQL, oh TRPC, oh TypeScript, and then kill them. Make sure you have enough context on them and then move on. That's the high level goal. Focus on being the best at the MERN stack, knowing enough MERN stack to be able to crack open source code bases, and understanding all the heavy technologies that all of these open source projects use. That's the high level goal. That's how the cohort has been. You can take feedback from anyone who's in the cohort. Let's more practically discuss what we've learned. Week 1 was JavaScript. The prerequisites, so like 1 JavaScript video, just making sure everyone's on the up and up, a few extra classes, and then finally understanding asynchronous JavaScript, which is the important thing, the thing that you should know to differentiate yourself from everyone else. How JS is different from other languages. Week 2 was purely backend that involved HTTP servers, deep dive into it, Express, authentication, databases, and MongoDB. Week 3 was archaic frontends, how we used to write frontends for many years, which was using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, why that was bad, and how the ugly approach of creating a dynamic website was eventually moved over to front-end frameworks like Vue and React, and what exactly they do, how they work under the hood using building our own reconciler. So what is reconciler? It's the sort of process that makes front-end development very easy, specifically in open source frameworks or like frameworks like React and Vue. Building one of our own, not touching any React until now, just building our own reconciler to make front-end development easy for ourselves. Then finally, like, okay, good people have written good open source projects, let's just use that. So we used React. In the first part of React, which is week 4, we did some custom hooks, the basic hooks that exist, and writing our own hooks, understanding React and creating our own front end for a very simple to-do application. Week 5 was consolidating everything. Back end we learned, front end we learned, too many things we learned. So let's create a project. We created a to-do application, we created a course selling application, and understood some very sort of famous constructs. We went very slow, which is why even things like Axios and MUI weren't introduced. Like in week 1, week 2, week 3, slowly we introduced, okay, let's replace fetch with Axios. There are a bunch of libraries out there, and like this is one transition I need to teach. Every other transition you can make on your own. If I tell you, okay, there's Bootstrap and then there's MUI, if you want to move to Tailwind, of course you probably need an hour or two of looking at the docs or like looking at videos, but the goal is ki, you're very language independent. That's the high level goal of the code. Week 5 was all of these things, context, prop drilling, bunch of sort of specific React concepts. State management happened somewhere here, okay, maybe after that. So this was good checkpoint, and this is where a few college students had the examinations, which is why we took a break. And in this break also, just to make sure advanced people were happy, because a lot of people who joined the cohort had already done React and were feeling fairly slow. We did a Google Meet clone. We understood peer-to-peer WebRTC, how you can write a Google Meet like application on your own, not a production ready application, but like enough to understand what is WebRTC, how the protocol works, and how an application like Google Meet can be built under the hood. We also had a bounty here because there was a bug in the final code and someone fixed it. Week 7, state management. So we use Recoil for state management because all the open source projects I've looked at use Recoil, no one uses Redux. Introduction to TypeScript and moving our JavaScript course selling application front end and back end to TypeScript. All of this doesn't happen in 2 lectures on the weekend. Sometimes there are offline videos, but the crux of the things and the advanced things usually happen during the live class, and then there might be a few offline videos during the week, which I post. Alrighty. Week 8 was some more advanced TypeScript, which is generics in TypeScript, Zod for input validation, which is a library that is used everywhere out there and sort of confuses people a little. Deploying apps to the NPM registry, not apps, packages. So how you can create your own packages and deploy them to an NPM registry. And finally, monorepos, which is like how repositories are built in the real world, where backend and frontend are all in the same sort of code base. Cool. This was the original curriculum I had in mind. Something less than that, a few extra things we learned, but overall this was like, this is the one stack. At this point, I did a meetup, talked to folks, and realized there's a lot to learn. This might not be one stack what we're learning anymore. It's like some of it is DevOps, some of it is more things you don't need as a full stack developer, but we're going to learn them so that if you open an open source project, you understand everything. Week 9 was we had a meetup in Bangalore. So I met all the folks from the cohort and a few extra folks as well. And we did a GitHub CI/CD pipeline, just CD actually, not CI. We understood how you can deploy your backend application, the to-do application, the course selling application, the e-commerce application, whatever you've built onto an AWS machine using GitHub's CD. So you don't have to go into the server and pull your code every time. How you can continuously deploy directly from GitHub to Amazon. This was done in 2 hours, and then there's an extra class that I'll be releasing now for like some extra concepts. But I feel even buzzwords as hard as these, like continuous deployment is like something everyone talks about. I don't think that you need more than 2 hours to gain enough context on it to understand how things are happening under the hood. And then of course, offline videos, other videos, ChatGPT, everyone's your friend. The goal is, this is something you need to do, and that's how we sort of tackle every week. This was week 9. This is where we're at right now. Now comes the rest of the cohort. How many weeks are left, and what are we doing from here? So original plan was the cohort would be 10 weeks to 12 weeks. We're already at week 9. I think the cohort will be at least 10 more weeks, if not more, which means 2 more months. That's my high level idea at this point. And I've charted out a high level sort of schedule for the next few weeks. Extra classes. We also took 2 extra classes. As I said, there was a system design class on a video transcoder, and finally Google Meet class was, as I said, also an extra class. This is usually when people want breaks, but we want advanced people to learn something more than they already know. So we take classes like these, so like how to build Google Meet or system design for a video transcoder that builds a lot of money, things like these. Cool. Alrighty, now what's coming from here? Week 1, which means the coming week, Deploying front ends, we've deployed backend using CI/CD. Front ends are very different. How are they different from backends? And how front end deployment changes as you move from React to Next.js. When we understand this, we also have to understand server-side rendering and Next.js. That's what the next week is going to be. Week 2, that's coming. Building an end-to-end monorepo, so basically a pause, especially for people who are joining now, making sure you're able to build your end-to-end monorepo in TypeScript, React, Node.js, Turbo repo, monorepo, MERN stack, and deploy it on AWS. Cool. Basically a very good checkpoint to build projects of your own in the MERN stack using MongoDB as the database. Cool. Week 3 is going to be GraphQL and OpenAPI spec, maybe a few other technologies on how you can communicate with your backend and why these sort of came into the picture, even though we already have HTTP. Week 4 is going to be more type safety, basically diving a little deeper into TypeScript, because when you open a project, most probably you'll be confused by a syntax, because TypeScript syntax is sort of weird, especially if you're coming from JavaScript. So we need to spend some more time there. TRPC, a project that's used almost not everywhere, but in a lot of open source projects, that gives a very nice type safety on front ends and backends. You need to know this. This is where, I mean, this is slightly hard of a library to chew. So next, a full week for this. Week 5, SQL. So we've only done MERN, MongoDB right now. MERN is usually sort of technically and officially for Mongo, because M stands for Mongo, but like SQL is what's used everywhere. So we have to spend a week on it at least, if not more. Week 6, containerization using Docker. What is containerization? Why is it used? Like all that jazz. And of course, containerizing our application until this point. Finally, auto-scaling backends using AWS. We have, until now, the continuous deployment done happens on a single EC2 machine. How it can auto-scale up and down, not using Kubernetes. So this isn't a DevOps course, and neither are we most probably learning Kubernetes. Most probably, we don't know, curriculum changes, but most probably the simple deployment using some AWS constructs in an auto-scaling fashion. So it goes up and down. Finally, week 7, writing tests and continuous integration. If you've done CD until now, but we haven't wrote any tests, so we've not touched this side of continuous integration. That's what we'll do in week 7. Finally, week 7 onwards is when we start diving deeper into projects, and if there is a technology that's used in a specific project, we learn that separately. But I think high level, I feel we have these 7 weeks of learning left and 4 more weeks of actual open source contributions, which is like 11, 12 weeks that I think we still have to go through. So if you still want to join, link is in the description. And anyone who joins right now, since you're joining so late, will also get, how much is that? Like some 15% off. Link is in the description. The coupon code to use is YouTube. If you use the YouTube coupon code, you'll get some discount. You can join if you already at least know a lot of these things that we've taught, which is like JavaScript, you at least know basic Node.js application you can write, and even React you have written. If you don't know TypeScript, it's fine, you can catch up. But if you have not written React ever, don't join right now. Wait for the next one, it will come very soon. And by very soon, I mean like I'll announce it in the next, when I know the cohort is about to end is when I'll announce, and there'll be a handover period of people in this cohort meeting the people in the next cohort, and you can like talk to each other, and you can also attend classes from the very last class of this cohort. You can attend and just see where we're going with the next cohort. But the next cohort will take time. The next cohort will also be, there'll be a lot of learnings from here, and that'll officially be 4 months. This was officially 2 months, eventually became 4 months. That'll officially be 4-5 months, whatever. And that might be more expensive than this one. Not crazy expensive, but like some little bit more than this, because a lot of things I anticipated as a 2-month cohort, and this turned out to be 4 months. So like recurring expenses sort of increased. So next one might be slightly expensive, not too much. If this was 6,000, that'll be like 8,000 bucks. But if you feel that first part we can tackle ourselves, we just want to know the mode or like the advanced things, then you can join right now and also get a discount. This one's fairly cheap. Link is in the description. Coupon code is YouTube. Alrighty. What's left? FAQs. Should I join? Will there be a next batch? Yes, very soon. Not very soon, like after this cohort ends, which my current guess is 2 months. Let's see when that happens, and also handover period. So maybe like 1.5 months to 2 months. Which one should I join? Old or the new batch? If you don't know React, definitely don't join. If you've not done the first 3 parts of the full stack series of mine on on YouTube, don't join. Only join if you understand at least a basic MERN stack application, write it yourself. Even if you don't know continuous deployment right now, it's fine. You can watch the offline video. Don't know TypeScript, it's fine. But basic MERN stack you should know. Only then join this one, else wait for the next one. Why not HTML, CSS? I taught a bunch of things. Why did I not teach HTML, CSS? That's the thing I wanted to talk about, which is like we are doing very focused learning on things that are not available and are hard to chew. HTML, CSS are simple. And secondly, you don't use them as often in the when you join a company, when you look at an open source project anywhere, other than if you're building a hackathon kiddie project. No one's using HTML and CSS. No point spending so many valuable hours there. Redux versus recoil. Why aren't we doing Redux? Because recoil is what's being used anywhere, everywhere. And also, I feel eventually, like in the next 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, when you're joining the industry, this is replacing that. So no point learning an archaic state management library. I'm happy to take lectures on it or release an offline video or point to a lecture that's out there. I'm not the best teacher in the world. The only goal is to focus and do things. If that means looking at another video, that's fine. That's the cohort isn't really, we're not trying to gate information here, which is like a point here somewhere. Okay. The goal of the cohort is, why not free? Like, why is the cohort not free, and why are we gating so much information? And the reply here is there is no gating information. Like, in fact, internet took away that few years ago. My curriculum, all the things that we've learned in the past weeks is available on my website, open for free. The video won't open, but the titles are there. You can simply go and Google and learn it yourself. If you can't afford it, if you think paying for a course is not right in coding, all that jazz, it's totally fine and you can learn it yourself. The goal is to be very focused. That's why we charge, and TA is all that jazz. It's totally fine if you can't afford it. You can learn everything on your own. Open source part, after the 7 weeks, maybe more, maybe less, I don't know, but at least 7 weeks we're learning more before we move to the actual open source. Call it contributions, but more specifically understanding the open source project. It should be at a stage where you just open the project and you should be able to understand most things. That's my goal. Okay, there's nothing that's happening there. It's just, oh, this was an open source project. It was that easy to sort of decode it. That's the goal of the cohort. So that's when the open source part will come. Are the classes beginner friendly? I think a little too much. The way we work is, okay, every 1 hour we do a poll, and only if 85 to 90% of the people say yes, we understood, do we proceed? And that causes problems with advanced folks sometimes. Okay, we go slow. Unfortunately, we do. Doesn't happen too often. Okay, I'm teaching for those 2 hours. So whenever it's happening, I want to take as many people as I can. That doesn't mean 100% always, but 90, 85% we try to take with us. We do a poll every 1 hour, and only if 85 to 90% of the people understand, do we proceed? So I'd call it a little too beginner friendly. Although the topics we are learning are not beginner friendly, these are advanced concepts. I could simply teach like HTML, CSS for 3 weeks, and then you'd be happy. Okay, you learned something new. I'd be happy. Okay, my life was easy. Everyone understood everything, but like, then what's the point of the cohort and charging? Like, if you're learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, there's like 1,000 resources out there, and also like this is not being used. Like, if you spend 6 months just learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you might feel a dopamine rush. You know everything, but like, you still can't open that project and contribute, right? So things that are being taught are hard. They're being taught in a beginner friendly fashion. You still have to be in the top sort of, you don't have to be in the below 10%. The below 10% does suffer. There are cases in which there are 10% people who don't understand and we still proceed, but 90% of the people are happy. You need to make sure you're in that lot. Okay, cool. Are we hand holding? I find hand holding is a very offensive and weird term. No one's holding anyone's hand. It's just very specific information. Okay, we are learning this week. Harkirat is going to teach it, you are going to do the assignments, and then go out there. There are a bunch of resources, read about it, open an open source project, move beyond the class. What is being taught in the next class, learn already, things like these. No hand holding, I don't want to hand hold, neither am I. It's a very weird term. We're just teaching and people are learning, and basically learning what to learn rather than how to learn. Okay, system design. There might be some classes on system design as well. Very high level practical system design. System design is like very easy as an educator, because you just have to tell, oh, systems are built like that. And I took one class, a lot of fun for me, a lot of fun for you guys, the video transcoder class. So I'm happy to take more classes at the end. These won't help you in open source, because system design is something leaders do. You as an open source contributor initially won't do. You have to like churn a lot of code, but still happy to do this. Why not free? Already talked about it. Finally, I want to talk about community. Yeah, what is community? It's a weird sort of used buzzword. In our case, I've seen community is just someone telling you some small thing, oh, this is an opportunity, or me saying something during a live class that changes the trajectory of your life. I'm not saying I'm some god or like, I will change the trajectory of your life. I'm just saying I've seen a few examples of in my life and in the cohort as well. Okay, I told someone something specific. For example, there's one person in the cohort who's really good. I don't know why he joined the cohort, and he came to me, said I want to work. I was like, yeah, you can probably apply. I interviewed him as well. His expectations were a little higher, 150K as like a college student, which was a little too much for us. So I asked him, if you want this kind of a sort of package, maybe go into machine learning. That's where most of the money is right now. That's where most of the funding is. If you want to, as a college student, make that much, Web3 or AI is where you'll have to go. I just told him this. like not even 5 minutes, 2 minute conversation, and he's contributing already. I told him, look at an organization that's been funded recently and is open source. He found one, he's contributing to it. So that 2 minute conversation is what led to sort of him doing a bunch of things. I'm not helping him at all, but these small 2 minute kicks that you get in the cohort help you a lot. So that's what I mean by community. Your TA, two things. One is this, you learn something. Two is you get stuck somewhere and a TA helps you out. The problem with programming is, especially when you're learning these advanced things, right? You will get stuck somewhere. And then if someone doesn't solve that doubt of yours in like 2, 3, 4, 5 hours one day, you're just stuck and you leave programming. So the goal is we have the best TAs. One thing I'm very thankful for is this whole TA concept came to me very randomly. Maybe we should have sub batches and TAs assigned to sub batches. Beautiful TAs. Best lot I could have asked for. In fact, I want to thank everyone. There are a few names here, a few names not here because people were not comfortable sharing their names, but we have like, I think, 20 odd TAs that help everyone out. So thank you everyone. And these are the folks that you're interacting with a lot of times. And that's what the community gives you as well. When you get stuck at that point, rather than leaving, these guys help you out. That's the high level sort of FAQs. Alrighty, cool. If you want to join, link is in the description. If not, totally fine. If you're a beginner, don't join right now. You can join the next one. And feedback is out there on the open. People in the cohort, feel free to comment. Good things, bad things, whatever you want. I feel I already know what the good things are. I also know what the bad things are. Good things are, cohort is nice, teaching fine, we're able to learn Randamaka. Bad things are advanced people think it's a little slow. And these things are already available and ये तो हम कर ही लेते हैं Randamaka, which I agree. I want to make sure कि at least 90% of the class goes, so the classes can still be slow. But what's being taught is not beginner friendly. It's sort of advanced stuff. If you know those things, it's good. And eventually, as we increase the pace and understand these things that I talked about, for example, diving into SQL, Dockerization, continuous integration, I think even the advanced folks are going to be like, cool, the pace seems nice. That is the biggest feedback I heard. It's a little slow for advanced people. I sort of agree. So that's pretty much it. I think there's a graph like this where like the bottom 5% are like, oh, kuch nahi samajh aa raha. Top 5% are like, this is a little too easy. And then beach ka lot is happy. Could totally be wrong. Comment section is always open. For people in the cohort, feel free to comment. Twitter, LinkedIn is already there. People post their feedbacks. So feel free to check it out. Link is in the description. Coupon code is YouTube. Feel free to use it and get a discount. With that, let's end the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'll see a few of you in the cohort. The ones I don't see in this cohort, I'll see you on YouTube or in the next cohort. With that, let's end the video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.